The dark night. So once I'd had my spiritual awakening, which was really quite wonderful and very expansive and felt really positive, what followed, and this doesn't always follow suit, by the way, but what followed for me, not straight away, but sometime after, was I went through the dark night of the soul. And I wasn't expecting it at all. Sometimes it can just come upon you, and other times something can happen that's quite big in your life to make it happen. But for me, it just came around for a few things, perhaps the straw that breaks the camel's back, a number of things, events, and it is like a spiritual depression. It's when you wake up one day and you feel as though everything that you've created in your life, and bearing in mind I was in my late 40s when it happened for me, everything you've created in your life isn't really you anymore. It doesn't really mean anything. Everything that meant something means nothing. And that makes you feel incredibly detached from your life and everybody in it and everything that you do. And it's a time of, regret, sadness, questioning, but very much a depression sort of state where you look at everything you've done in your life and you just don't really feel attached to it anymore. I remember it going on for a few months and nobody really noticing it, apart from my partner, who actually said, "What's the matter with you?" I couldn't explain it, because trying to explain a spiritual awakening to someone who's not had one is one thing, but going through the dark night of the soul is completely a different thing. And there were a few things that kind of came about, and it actually felt like an ego death. I actually felt like I died, and all of the parts of me just fell to the floor. Like I broke into pieces and turned into ash. And that's the only way I can really explain it. Sorry about the banging. So it looks like they're making something in the park. Don't know what they're making, apart from a noise. But they're on the skate park doing something. Anyhow, yeah, I felt like there was a few, sort of 2 or 3 things that happened, and it was like this: I'm not this person that I thought I was. That I've been living my life as this person, and it isn't really who I am. It's all these beliefs that perhaps been coded into me, and all these things that I thought and how I'd been living. And there's lots of things that I really needed to look at that just honestly felt like I crumbled. And it was a very dark time. It was a very dark place. I spent a lot of time crying. I spent a lot of time feeling very sad. I mean, your head, your mind, and you couldn't really run away from yourself, but everything about you is shifting and dying, and that's how it feels, like it's crumbling, dying away like ash, like I said. I felt like I was burnt to the ground, and there's nothing there. You're still, you're there in this position of your life, which just felt like it died, but there's nothing there. It's like an empty space, like a void. And all that is filling it at the moment is this kind of sadness, like loss, like grief. All of these feelings that are incredibly uncomfortable. And all that was left when I was going through this dark night was, first of all, this sense of panic and not wanting to fall into this space, because I had a job and family and things to do, and I was questioning everything. I didn't want to fall into that space. There's this kind of sense of like trying to hold on. But actually, once I'd surrendered and let myself fall into it and given myself permission to be this way and allow it, that, there wasn't any way of being other than the way I was. And no matter what strength I had and positive mindset, there was nothing I could do. I just had to kind of let it be. It was as if every part of me and who I thought I was had crumbled. And there was then, once I'd fallen into the void of it, it felt like so much better, like a surrendering process. And that was real time for looking at my shadows, projections, all the things that perhaps I thought, I don't know, that were useful. It was the inner work once I'd gotten through this stage. It did go on for months first, where I was just sort of feeling really bereft. I then got into this position where I surrendered, and I realized, okay, there is no old me anymore. But I had this work to do, this kind of tying up. So I went and I did a lot of things, including shadow work, which is really looking at the parts of you push down, the parts that you see in other people that you don't like, which actually one of the catalysts, I think, for this dark night had been about other people. There's a few people involved, and I was looking at the traits and the things that I really didn't like, and I realized that I actually needed to bring those more into my life. So looking at the shadows, because those are the things I'd pushed away, and actually I needed to, they weren't really me being pushed away. What was being me was actually bringing them into my life, probably in a better way than actually it was initially. So yeah, that was I would say that was super important to do that, because then once you've looked at all of those shadows, you become whole, because you're starting to integrate them into your life and who you really are deep down. Those things get pushed away when you're young, so that you can fit in with society or the group of people or your family or the friends that are around you. So definitely shadow work was a huge part of, I want to say it was like a recovery, but it's not. It's like building up who I am. And when you go through the dark night, there's so much truth within it. It can seem like an incredibly, like you never leave. It's the worst thing that ever happened to you. But honestly, I can say to you, it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. It's made me realise the things that I was doing and the cycles that I was in for a long time, the whole of my life almost, and actually how I don't want to move, I can't move forward like that anymore, because that part of me had died, and it gave me space to actually work through those, make sure that I learnt the lessons, so that I understood what that whole situation of the dark night was and why it came about, so that I could then move forward. It's like a rebirth in a very new way, as the real me. But yeah, there was definitely some lessons and some work to do around it. So my advice, Betsy, come this way, darling. My advice for anyone going through the dark night would be to know that it doesn't last forever. And what I found really useful during that whole time was you'll find that it's quite difficult to actually articulate it, because it's very difficult. I mean, I'm struggling to put it into words now, but you can't really articulate it. And actually, who are you going to articulate it to? Because most people will think, what, you're just depressed, or some people might think you're going mad. But people who haven't been through it just really wouldn't understand it. So it's kind of like, what is the point anyway? But what I was saying is, you might find it very difficult to put into words. I know I did. And so you might find it useful to meditate on it, feel it, write about it. And gosh, I'm getting out of breath. The other thing I would say is there were situations that were coming up during the dark night where I couldn't talk to people about it, but I was being tested by them. And it wasn't very pleasant. And during that time, I couldn't use my mind at all to do things or respond or make decisions, but I had this hand. It was very clear. It was like a hand inside me, a voice inside me that steered me all the way through it with what to do. And it was incredibly helpful. And what I know now is that is actually the higher self, the part of you that knows the wisdom of it. So I would say that when the mind fails you, the spirit is literally feels like it's been snuffed out, your soul is sort of crying, your inner child screaming at you, whatever, however you feel during this phase, you actually have this higher self that, or at least I did, that was putting me into making decisions for me on my behalf, and it was steering me through that whole situation. So that is all about getting really into a position where you get very quiet and you need to meditate, ruminate, whatever you want to call it, but whatever you want to do, like call it phone, whatever works for you, contemplate, auditoplate, whatever you need to do to get quiet and to give yourself time to relax, to go within, to breathe. Sometimes I would make up the answers after a night's sleep. Other times it would just come out of nowhere, and it was like an internal voice, an internal hand guiding me. And actually what it was doing was guiding me not to be like the way I used to be, but to be the way that I was going to become. It gave me a real signal for how that was going to be. And that was really cool, actually. At the time I didn't really know what it was, but now looking back I can see it was setting the pathway for the next way of being of me. So if it happens to you, listen out for that voice. And I would suggest that, you use a lot of meditation, contemplation, just to give yourself space and time and peace. And also know that it will come to an end, but it isn't forever. How you look after yourself during that time is so important. So things like sleep, lots of sort of rest if you can't sleep, plenty of good food, making sure you're eating carbohydrates at bedtime so that that helps you sleep. And I would say just, you don't have to answer to people, you just be you, take time to journal on what's happening, don't get too much into your head, just, it is about self-care, it genuinely is, and I think that if you can do that during this time, sorry, that's my cat now demanding food, it's probably time for me to sign off. But those are the things I would say really helped me, because you can't shorten it. You just have to go through it. Let it take its course. And I promise you, when you come out the other side, you will feel the wisdom of it. That you will understand the lessons. You will get the message. You won't be able to continue as the person that you were before. And that's a really good thing. I trust the process. I know they say trust the process, but that is honestly how it was for me, is just trust the process. So yeah, that's a little bit about the dark night. I hope that sheds a little bit of light. As I say, it's very difficult to explain, talk about all of those things. So if it happens to you, see it as a gift, because that's how I see it. It's a real gift of stop. This isn't how you're going to be anymore. It's time for you to change and move forward, and it enforces it. So yeah, if it's happening to you right now, lots of love, and just know that it will end and you will come out a totally stronger, different, empowered person.